Do you like the Metaverse? Because I like the Metaverse, and I'm really excited that Virtua's Cardano Island is sponsoring this episode. Cardano Island is one of those projects I'm excited to have in our ecosystem. There are small, medium, and large plots, also condos, plans for 4 main sections, different zones and districts, fan caves to display NFTs, 6 different land resources, land bots, non-player character slots, slots for our Cardano Summit 2021 NFTs, other games, and lots more features. I bought a large plot on Cardano Island, and I can't wait to be on my land to see what this becomes. Check out cardano.virtua.com or click the link below. Well, I don't know about everybody else, but I feel like we've been in training camp for a long time. Cardano has been taking every precaution and making every preparation to ensure that our ecosystem is perfectly positioned when it finally takes the field for its first real game. Do we have the best staking system? Yes. Do we have a very secure smart contract programming language? Yes. Are we among the very most decentralized blockchains? Yes. Are transactions affordable? Yes. Is there a roadmap for more scaling and decentralized governance? Yes and yes. All the work was front loaded for years and years. Now we're finally good to go. At this point, we get to sit back and watch a lot of our competitors get slowly enveloped by the pain of regret because they weren't willing to make those same sacrifices early on. Ready? Let's go. Today, we are going to discuss a detailed rundown of the Vasil update status, how apparently even Ethereum's great L2 hope for scaling is too expensive, an update on World Mobile in Zanzibar, IOG setting up a new research center at a very prestigious university, something new with Mithril, and the Metaverse getting a lot of mainstream attention lately. If you're like me and you have absolutely no idea how many players are actually involved in a legit game of international football, they could probably put about 100 guys on the field and my reaction would still be, looks good. Or if you're finding value in these videos each weekday, please consider, just take a moment and imagine delegating to the Army of Spies stake pool, ticker AOS. Also, we transitioned over to 1.35.3 last week, and we've already produced, I believe, about 11 blocks. So things are looking fantastic. Cardano as a whole is in a great position right now. Here is an ecosystem readiness report from IOG. And if we come down here, the first big section is about SPO readiness. They've also got a little section that lays out the criteria for triggering the hard fork. We've talked about it a bunch of times. 70%, 75% of mainnet blocks created with the Vasil node candidate, which is 1.35.3. Approximately 25 exchanges upgraded. This represents about 80% of the ADA liquidity. And the top 10 Cardano dApps by TVL being on 1.35.3 and ready for mainnet. So we come down to the first section, SPO readiness. You can see we have already surpassed the threshold here, 1.35.3, 76%, but we're actually a little bit beyond that. If we come over here to Pool Tool under the Network Health tab, we can see the live numbers. And for this epic, it looks like we're at 79% of blocks on 1.35.3. The next item is something we don't talk about very much, and that's downstream component integration status. Obviously, in a complicated blockchain ecosystem like Cardano, you're going to have a lot of components, and those components also need to be integrated with 1.35.3. And you can see on this list, which is current as of a few days ago, August 26th, it looks like everything has either been released or successfully tested against 1.35.3. As a retail consumer, you'll probably be most familiar, at least, with Daedalus. Next up, we have the exchange readiness list. This is kind of like the list of shame or the list of who loves us the most. And of course, it's some small exchanges like smaller, I should say, like Bitrue that are actually ready. There were a couple down here at the end of the list as well. Index.io, LCX, among the big exchanges, among the big three, it looks like Binance and Kraken both love us at least a little bit. Or another way to put it, a lot more than Coinbase, who has not started yet. Binance and Kraken, thank you. Coinbase, please, please get to work. Among our top 10 Cardano dApp projects, it looks like we have a whole lot of testing going on. A little bit of awaiting info, but a whole lot of testing. So it looks like we're doing pretty good on that front as well. So it looks like if the exchanges can just do their work, we can have Vasil pretty soon. And Cardano is going to be in a pretty good place. We're positioned very well on pretty much every metric that matters for a blockchain ecosystem like ours. We're in really good shape as far as decentralization goes. We think we're in really good shape as far as security goes. And as for the final leg of the blockchain trilemma, scaling, it actually looks like we're also doing quite a bit better than our biggest competitor. Okay, we've talked recently about ZK rollups, and ZK rollups are quite a trending item in the blockchain world right now. Pretty much everybody believes very, very strongly in ZK rollups, or at least a lot of people do. A certain segment of people seem to believe very, very strongly in ZK rollups because that is the path forward for scaling for Ethereum. Well, here is a thread from a .eth person who labels himself a blockchain engineer who is bemoaning how expensive the rollups still are because they have to commit the data, the rolled up data, to the base layer chain. He says L2 rollups have promised to let anyone use Ethereum with low transaction fees. However, rollups are still more expensive than many low fee chains. Can this be fixed? Let's run a little experiment with call data and see how much we can lower these fees. So, of course, he's a blockchain engineer according to his profile. So he's got some ideas on how to lower these fees. But as it currently stands, he's got a little article here explaining where things have been recently. If I click through to his article, he says, after years of development, rollups have finally been deployed and are gaining adoption. The flagship Arbitrum and Optimistic rollup has been live for nearly a year with over 2.7 billion worth of assets deposited into the bridge, while Optimism tells closely behind. And then he talks about application-specific ZK rollups like Loopring and DYDX, also seeing substantial adoption. Despite the rapid scaling advancements in the rollup space, some have expressed concerns that these fees are still too high. And then he's got this post here from BitMEX, and you'll notice this is a little bit old. This is from some months ago, clear back in November. But the current cost to swap tokens on these ZK rollup L2s is pretty surprising if you're not familiar with them. So they kind of quote a price to do the swap on the Ethereum base layer of $41.11, $41.11. Of course, that's too much. This is the biggest problem in Ethereum. So you imagine, okay, ZK rollups are the answer. ZK rollups are going to be the thing that fixes the problem. But we look at all of the ZK rollup options to do the same swap, and they're a lot cheaper. They're like 10%, a little bit more than 10% in the case of Arbitrum of the Ethereum base layer cost, but they're still too high. Our Cardano base layer is pretty cheap compared to these L2s, which are supposed to be the great hope for scaling for Ethereum. If our base layer is already so competitive against their L2 scaling options, and we can also employ L2 scaling options, how are they going to be able to compete on price? And people will make the argument, oh, but you're paying for the network effects of the Ethereum network. It's because there's so many users, so of course you have to pay more. It doesn't have to be that way. You can have a blockchain that actually achieves the blockchain trilemma, that can actually scale and not cost $5. With the high-tech ZK rollup L2, you can have a blockchain that can do it for cheaper than $5. This is a thing that can happen, and Cardano is striving for that. With Ethereum, I'm not so sure where they end up on this. We already know the Cardano Foundation tells us right on the website that the merge, it's a misconception, false, that the merge is going to make transactions cheaper or faster. So everybody's kind of hanging their hats on the ZK rollup L2s, but ZK rollup L2s, man, they're not looking hyper competitive here. I don't know if Ethereum has positioned themselves well enough to actually compete with the other Gen 3 blockchains like Cardano that are actually trying to achieve all three parts of the blockchain trilemma. If you can't get the costs, if you can't get the cost of the transactions any lower than this, you're going to get out competed. And for those of you who are curious if things have changed since that post with the prices from back in November, I just cruised over here to Etherscan to look at their Ethereum gas tracker, and they say that currently Arbitrum or Optimism deposits might cost you anywhere between $2.51 and $4.84 in terms of the low and high possible gas fees. So, I mean, they're still not achieving those kinds of rates. And granted, these are deposits, not swaps. So it's a slightly different metric than what we looked at a second ago. But still, they're not achieving the kinds of super low fees that I think the Gen 3 blockchains are all trying to achieve, and that we're already seeing with the Gen 3 blockchains on their base layers. On the base layer, they're achieving better fees than this. Just for some third-party perspective on those fees, if we come over here to Masari and go to their Cardano page, they actually have a chart for us with historical data all about Cardano transaction fees. They say average transaction fees on 8/23/2022, 17 cents. And if we go back to some previous days, we see numbers like 19 cents, 16 cents, 17 cents, 15 cents. Again, we're comparing apples to oranges here because these are just average transaction fees, just regular transactions on the network. But what I'm thinking is if you're going to have this great L2 scaling hope, it needs to at least be competitive with the base layers of the other Gen 3 blockchains. Granted, I'm sure once you're actually in the ZK rollup L2 and you're doing transactions there, a simple transaction, just sending assets back and forth, is probably very cheap. But it seems like the interaction between the base layer and the ZK rollup is still too expensive. Those deposit fees are still too high when you consider how cheap it still is to do things on the base layer in some of these other Gen 3 blockchains. So it looks like Cardano is positioned just fine for Basho and the scaling leg of the blockchain trilemma. Cardano is also positioned very, very well for doing real things in the real world, like RealFi. Here's the World Mobile Token Scan website, WMTscan.com, and they've got this great map of, it looks like, actual Airnode deployments on Zanzibar. You can see there are some deployments out in these outlying areas. Was that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in these outlying parts of Zanzibar? And then right in Zanzibar City, you've got some developing good coverage. I mean, it kind of looks like if you're in this area, this is Airnode wireless network range, approximately 100 meters. Kind of looks like if you're in this area, World Mobile's kind of got you covered with these Airnodes. And I mean, this is just the beginning. How young is World Mobile on their journey to connect the unconnected? This looks like a great start. Speaking of Cardano doing real things in the real world, here's an article at CoinDesk about IOG donating $4.5 million to set up a new blockchain research hub at Stanford University. These are the kind of things that actually result in advancement of the science of blockchains and the cryptography underpinning the blockchains and blockchain ecosystems. If we want cutting edge technology, if we want to be beneficiaries as members of a blockchain ecosystem, if we want to be beneficiaries of cutting edge technology, you have to fund the cutting edge research. And Stanford is the kind of place where you can get that done. Speaking of the latest and greatest technology, it's long been a source of friction in crypto in general that it's great to run a full node wallet. It's great not to have to trust anybody about the state of the ledger when you run a full node wallet, but it's not so fun to have to download the entire blockchain just to use that full node wallet. Here comes Mithril to solve that problem. We've talked about Mithril many times on this channel, but you'll remember Mithril allows you to have the trustlessness of a full node wallet while having the convenience of a light wallet. So you're not going to have to download the entire blockchain, but you can still have that trustless experience where you know you don't have to trust someone's server who's running your light wallet for you. Cardano has now open sourced Mithril. Here's the GitHub. So now any Cardano wallet developer can make use of this same technology. If you've been curious, just how mainstream are metaverses really? The VMAs just gave an award to Blackpink for best metaverse performance. That's right. They actually had to create an award for the best metaverse performance, and Blackpink won it. Even more wild, one of the live performances was Eminem and Snoop Dogg, half being themselves in real life and half being their PFPs in a metaverse-like environment. I say a metaverse-like environment because they were using their Bored Ape Yacht Club PFP avatars in what I assume is the other side metaverse of the Bored Ape Yacht Club. I know they had a 4,300 user test day, kind of a demo day where those 4,300 users were able to visit a part of the other side metaverse. So it was a little bit unclear from this video if Eminem and Snoop were actually in something like that sort of demo of the metaverse, or if this was just kind of a fully created, 3D modeled video where they weren't actually, engaging with a real metaverse environment. In any case, I hope you are having a great week, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.